The reality is that adoption is not just this beautiful thing, it is a horrifying traumatic loss. It's an experience that is heartrending and difficult and painful. When I was 16 years old, I moved out of my parents' house because the conditions became untenable. I moved in with my boyfriend into his car, and in all of my 16-year-old hubris, I didn't think I could get pregnant. And then 2 months later, I'm sitting in a mall bathroom on a busy Saturday when a little boy pokes his head under the stall and says, "What are you doing?" as I'm staring at a positive pregnancy test. I walked out of that mall bathroom into my boyfriend's arms and I said, "We're placing this baby for adoption," both because I knew that I couldn't be a mother. I was making $7.25 an hour, working 12 hours a week, living in a car, but also because I had decided when I was 14 years old that if I ever got pregnant before I was ready, I would simply place the child for adoption because that's a wonderful solution to a terrible problem. I had grown up Catholic and I had known other adopted kids who didn't have a problem with their experience, and so I thought it was a good thing. Immediately I started calling adoption agencies and nobody called me back. Over the course of 2 months, I called 11 different adoption agencies and went into 2 within my own city. And nobody called me back because what I later learned is that adoption agencies don't like working with you when you're in your first trimester because they want to make sure that that baby's going to be born. Otherwise, they're wasting resources. Eventually, my boyfriend's mom let us move in with her for the duration of the pregnancy, and during that period of time, we wound up meeting some family friends who were looking to adopt. We met them at a Starbucks, and I thought about all the things that I would care about as a 16-year-old mom: vaccines, politics, mental health care, parenting styles, and religion. And I felt like these 2 men were the people that were supposed to be my daughter's father. So they came with us to every appointment. They were there in the delivery room when she was born. They were the first people to hold her, both because I wanted her to bond with the people that were going to raise her, and I was terrified that if I held her, I would never let her go. And I knew that wasn't an option. I didn't name my daughter, both because I'm terrible at naming things and because I didn't want her to have this experience of knowing that she had another name that she couldn't have. The day my daughter was born, my boyfriend had to go to work, so my mom came, and even though she and I had been fighting, she took that time to be my mom. That night, as I was laying in my recovery room, I experienced body-racking sobs that I couldn't put a name to, and my mom held me and rubbed my hair and walked me through that experience. 2 days later, I went home, crawled into my boyfriend's bed, and together we held each other and sobbed because the reality is that adoption is not just this beautiful thing, it is a horrifying traumatic loss. It's an experience that is heartrending and difficult and painful. In the months following, my boyfriend and I moved out of his parents' house. We slowly started drifting apart because the trauma was intense for both of us. We drifted into our own vices and our own addictions, and we eventually broke up. I spiraled into my addiction more deeply and wound up in an abusive relationship where I was almost killed several times. Eventually, I got out of that relationship and moved to Colorado, where I rebuilt my life and continue to visit my daughter at least once a year. I am now in school and I am working to become an activist, and I don't believe that adoption is the best option. Placing a child for adoption is the hardest thing I have ever done, and it was the only choice that I had because I was pregnant in the state of Texas at 16 years old, which meant that I had no access to abortion. It was the right thing to do, and it was the only thing I could do, and it is one of the most painful experiences I have ever been through. And that's why I'm no longer an adoption advocate.